questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to begin by sending best wishes to the Prime Minister and his children that are dealing with COVID-19. As a family that had COVID in the home, I wish them a speedy recovery. Canadian manufacturers, the Federation of Independent Business, the Chamber of Commerce, the Conservative Opposition, thousands of truckers for over a month have proposed solutions to the trucking shortage in Canada and the supply chain crisis, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has ignored this crisis, and even worse, he calls names for people that are raising these very issues. So, Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. Will the Prime Minister move past the division and agree to meet with some of the truckers impacted by his federal regulations?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the science is very clear. The best way through this pandemic is to get people vaccinated. That's how we end the disruptions to our supply chains caused by this global pandemic. That's how we get back to the things we love to do. That's why we've been unequivocal on the need to get vaccinated. And great news, Canadians across the country stepped up. Almost 90% of Canadians are vaccinated, including almost 90% of truckers, because we know that the biggest disruption to our supply chains happens when people catch COVID. That's why vaccinations are the way through it, and we're going to continue to be unequivocal about that.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when you ignore and divide a country when it needs to be united, that's not leadership, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister knows that the voices of a few don't represent the millions of Canadians who are worried. Millions of Canadians over 2 years have seen their lives upended, their children's mental health impacted, businesses fail, Mr. Speaker, the nation being stretched in our social fabric. Vaccines are critically important, but as the Prime Minister's own COVID diagnosis demonstrates after 3 vaccinations, we have to use all tools, Mr. Speaker, to get our life back to normal. When is life getting back to normal, Mr. Speaker?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I know, and all Canadians know, how frustrating it is to have to deal with this pandemic for now 2 years and ongoing. But Canadians also have never been so united in stepping up. Almost 90% of Canadians have been vaccinated. And that means they are protecting our frontline health workers. They are making sure that we're getting through this as best we possibly can. It is that unity of Canadians, that nature that we have of being there for each other that has been on such display through this pandemic. Yes, there are people who are still hesitant, and yes, there are people...
Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, depuis plus d'un mois.
Mr. Speaker, for more than a month, the Chamber of Commerce, the Conservative Opposition, and thousands of Canadians, among others, have been asking for fairer policies to fix the trucker shortage and the supply chain issues. The pandemic has changed now that we're 2 years in, with vaccines, rapid tests, and other tools. What is the Prime Minister waiting for before using all necessary tools to help us get back to a normal life? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We all agree that we want to end COVID. We are all exhausted from COVID-19. That is why we want to use our best tool available, vaccines. Unequivocally, people need to get vaccinated to protect themselves, to protect our healthcare workers, and to get the economy and our supply chains back on track. We are also using other tools, but the best tool is vaccines, and that is what we are putting forward, unlike the Conservative Opposition. The